Welcome back to Versus. Can you believe it's been about 4 years to the day since I filmed my first video for this company? And since then, two of my blockbusters have been Grand Seiko and Omega sports watches. Because it's summer, we're doing divers. This is like an Avengers movie with all the heroes in one feature. Which one's the superhero and which one's the sidekick? We're gonna find out. Grand Seiko launched this model with considerable pomp in 2017. This 500-piece limited edition and its black dial general production counterpart were billed as Grand Seiko's first professional-grade dive watches. Grand Seiko calls this the SBGH257, but its friends call it Godzilla. Seriously, this 46.9mm case is beefy enough for the big guy himself. Stick with smaller watches if your wrist is below 14.5 centimeters. Want to wear a polyhedron on your next dive? Grand Seiko describes its pro diver thusly, and you'll find immediate evidence to back the claim. All facets of this case are crisply defined, and the contrast between polish and satin looks balanced rather than busy. Despite the polyhedron talk, there is a judicious blend of curves and angles to break up the huge mountain of metal that Shizuki Ishii's finest have wrought. And nicely wrought it is. Rolex, Omega, and Breitling cases evince few signs of human interaction. This SBGH257 is tin plate polished by hand feel, eyeball, and experience. The Grand Seiko Zaratsu polish isn't quite the Swiss black polish equivalent that Seiko claims, but the role of manual skills is indisputable, and it humanizes the product in a way that Swiss price point rivals simply cannot match. The same attention to detail and hand finish is in evidence on the bracelet. Links this delicately executed generally appear on watches with names like Royal Oak, Overseas, and Nautilus. That said, I'm not in love with the use of pin sleeves for sizing, but at least the Hi-Beat Pro finds itself in the same boat as the Nautilus on that count too. Although the 257's clasp offers immense adjustability of over 25mm with an incremental slider, the solidity of the trigger-actuated diving clasp with its clamshell is more reminiscent of Breitling and Tag than Tudor, Rolex, and Omega. However, this compound clasp with both the clamshell and those triggers will stay good and shut. If your wrist is smaller than 16 centimeters circumference, you'll want to wear the 257 on a strap, and Grand Seiko includes a gorgeous blue, color-matched silicone strap and titanium pin buckle that look great and feel just as good. Morioka appears to have channeled Le Brassus with this exquisite blue hobnail dial. Its channeling is deep, richly textured, and perfectly proportioned. If you told me that this is an AP product cut on the traditional pantograph, I would struggle to disprove the claim. More than a pretty face, this is a highly functional component. The soft iron composition of the dial creates additional anti-magnetic shielding for the movement itself. How much shielding? Well, the ISO 764 for an anti-magnetic watch calls for resistance of 4800 ampere per meter, and the big blue SBGH boasts 16,000. It bears no challenge to the amagnetic Omega, but I wouldn't trade the SMP's mag resistance for the Grand's beauty unless I worked for CERN or Ghostbusters. Giant applied indices with Grand Seiko LumaBright look upscale and cut through the dark. The handsome satin finish atop the center hands is just as comely, and their glow is commensurately potent. On a side note, how quirky is it to see a cathedral hour hand on a diver? Also, note that Grand Seiko has illuminated not the tip of the seconds hand, but the blacked out lollipop counterweight. Unlike the Omega, the Grand Seiko sports a ADLC amorphous diamond-like carbon bezel coating rather than ceramic. It's easier to mark than the SMP, but it's also immune to fractures that can plague ceramic. Bezel action is reminiscent of the radio knob in a Rolls Royce. It is over-refined by design. The Hi-Beat's namesake is the Grand Seiko Manufacture Automatic 9S85, part of a movement family last redesigned in 2009. Caliber 9S85 is a 55-hour automatic wind movement with an El Primero-like 36,000 vibration per hour rate designed to defeat shock and vibration-induced timing error. The 10 beat per second rate is a pleasure against the ear and produces a smoother sweep of the seconds hand than a regular rate caliber. Stop seconds, a quick set date, and adjustment in 6 positions rather than a COSC standard 5 are highlights of the 37-jewel Grand Seiko movement. Protecting the caliber is Grand Seiko's first ever 600-meter water-resistant case. Special seals lead Grand Seiko to claim immunity to helium intrusion during saturation dives without recourse to a helium release valve. The Omega Planet Ocean launched in 2005 as the flagship of Omega's dive watch fleet. Caliber 8500, a family of purpose-built coaxials, arrived in 2011 along with ceramic bezels, and the current model bowed at Baselworld 2016 with new case sizes, revised dial, and Matas chronometer movements. The Planet Ocean's 43.5mm Grade 5 titanium case appears dwarfed by the Grand Seiko, but they're similar in thickness with only 0.7 of a millimeter disparity between the Omega and the Grand. Neither can be worn with cuffs. Omega's case, with its beveled form, has been around since John Michael Osborne was looking for his first music gig. This shape scales with most Seamaster and Speedmaster families, but never really changes in its overall design. Some would call it classic, others call it stale. I'm more interested in the spec. Omega uses a more conventional case profile than the tucked crown of the SBGH. This appeals to traditionalists, but it does limit ambidextrous options on certain wrists. The bracelet of the Omega does look generic and it lacks the human touch of the Grand, but all removable links are fixed by screws, and pivoted end links keep the Omega 5.5mm shorter lug to lug than the 257. I should also mention, this clasp is a masterclass in dive design. Structural solidity is superior to the part on the SBGH, and dive functions include both a fold-out extension and a push-button incremental slider. The combination of the two adds more extra span than the Seiko, and the slider is far easier to use than the Hi-Beat's stiff mini-tab system. Perceived quality is high, and small ceramic pin snaps relay impressive attention to detail. Matching material dials seem to be a thing with Omega these days, and this SMP 600 boasts a blasted titanium dial to match its case. As a flagship model in the Seamaster family, the Planet Ocean boasts white gold hands and matching applied indices. All have been darkened to create higher contrast. Before the Seamaster 300 family bowed in 2014, the Planet Ocean was also the standard bearer for nostalgia in the Seamaster fleet. The broad arrow hands, tri-Arabic numerals, and orange accents remain as a throwback to those early days of the Planet Ocean collection, as well as the 50s, 60s, and 70s Omega dive timepieces. Orange, I should mention, is a polarizing color on watches, and it is love or hate type stuff. I love, but if you hate, other Planet Ocean models dial back the Tropicana factor. Do you prefer your date alongside an index? If so, the Omega might be the watch for you. Its dial is more intelligible by night due to the fact that Grand Seiko omits a loomed index altogether to make room for the date aperture. But it's the differential loom color on the minute hand and the bezel pearl that really make at-a-glance reading a snap when you're using the watch for timing. Omega's bezel offers a chunky action. Its detents are more pronounced but less crisp than the Hi-Beat's innumerable tiny clicks. Ceramic with permabonded amorphous metal inserts trades the shatter resistance of Grand Seiko's ADLC for greater scratch resistance. Take note, the orange quarter of the bezel is rubber and subject to degradation more rapid than either ADLC or ceramic. Behold a masterclass of mechanical engineering, Omega's exclusive Caliber 8900. It's automatic, runs for 60 hours from a full wind, and begins life as a COSC chronometer before passing through Omega's METAS fully cased test of power reserve, resistances, and 6 positions trialing precision. It accounts for the phrase master chronometer on the dial. The George Daniels coaxial escapement was tamed for good when the 8500 series movements launched in 2007, and the system's combination of precision, stability, and reduced maintenance requirements has been fully realized in the 8900. The key functional distinction on the wrist will be Omega's hour jumping time zone function that allows independent setting of the hour hand while traveling. Internally, the Omega boasts a silicon hairspring, a full balance bridge, and a free-sprung balance. All 3 features contribute to stability and toughness, for which the Seiko has no equivalent tech response. Although rated to 600 meters, the same as the Grand Seiko, the Planet Ocean employs a helium escape valve to facilitate helium release following saturation dives. Omega Planet Ocean advantages: rock-solid reliability with exotic escapement technology and amagnetic status, and you get a display back with no penalty to depth rating. Face it, if Richard Mille or Jaeger-LeCoultre launched the coaxial today and Omega had never had this tech, we would go crazy over it. It's still just as special even as it's become common. The Omega boasts extra power reserve, a tougher movement architecture, and the time zone feature, proving that Omega's tech can be practical too. The Planet Ocean in 43.5 is more wearable. Wrists under 15 centimeters need to opt for the Omega. Omega offers a better clasp, plain and simple. It's sturdier and provides more features. Pivoted end links and screws for removable links give Omega's bracelet the edge in quality and ergonomics. Differential loom. The dial is less bright on the Omega, but you have the colors to distinguish minutes elapsed at a glance. Grand Seiko Hi-Beat Professional Diver advantages: a hand-finished case and bracelet. There is none of the Omega's industrial austerity here. The Grand Seiko is more exclusive and intangibly more special than the mass-market Swatch product. By a margin, the Grand boasts a more satisfying bezel action than the Omega's Duff Detents. Grand Seiko provides an extra color-coordinated silicone strap for comfort and a stripped-down dive style. Seiko's LumaBrite in copious quantities overpowers the Omega's differential dial loom. And now, my choice. I came into this test expecting Omega to score a clean takedown of the Grand Seiko. Objectively, Omega has built a better dive watch and a better timepiece overall. And yet, Godzilla turns out to be my underdog hero here and my choice from the pair. The Grand Seiko is emotionally warmer, shows evidence of human involvement, and offers all the real-world reliability that I could want.